Alrighty, looks like it's gonna be a pretty short one today. It's a previously solved easy one, but let's see what it is. You're given integer array nums of length n. The partition is a partition is defined as an index I between 0 and n minus 1, splitting the array into two non-empty subarrays such that left subarray is 0 to I and right subarray is I plus 1 to n minus 1 inclusive. Non-empty. So they need to be, so this thing has to be n is 2 at least. Return the number of partitions where the difference between the sum of the left and right subarray is even. The difference between the sum of them is even. The number of partitions. This is borderline between easy and medium, I think. Okay, anyways, so apparently there's 4 partitions here. So 10, yeah, so it's like every single possible partition that is non-empty for the left and right. And they're all going to give you a difference that is even. Here there's nothing. Here there's everything. Length is at least 2 up to 100. Alright, so logically, what does this mean? So I think since we're dealing with strictly evaluation of whether or not something's odd or even, I think you can substitute everything even with 0 and everything odd with 1 to preserve the parity of it. So 10, 10, 3, 7, 6 would be 0, 0, 1, 1, 0. So the sum of this thing is 0, the sum of this thing is 2, 2 minus 0 is 0. Sum of that thing's 0, sum of this thing's 2. Sum of that thing's 1, and the other one's 1, so that's going to be a difference of 1, difference 0. And this thing's 0, or that thing's 2, this thing's 0. I think, what's the logic here? I think the logic might be that every so the sum, so that it's even here, then obviously it has to be even here. But if it becomes odd, so if it transitions between odd from even and the next value is odd, I think it needs to have another odd value immediately. Yeah. So for instance, so first up, everything has to add up to an even number, I believe. Because then if the difference is odd, then I don't think that can be, or if it adds up to an odd number, then the difference is going to be, the difference is going to be odd. If it adds up to an odd number, I don't think you can do any split where there's some left partition and right partition whose difference is even. I just don't think it's possible if the difference is odd, if the sum of this array is odd. Right, yeah, because it should be possible. If it was possible, then something as simple as 1, 1, 1 should work, and this obviously doesn't work, right? Or some variation of this, like you insert a bunch of zeros, as many zeros as you want, but it's just not going to work. So the sum has to be odd, or the sum has to be even, sorry. So pretty trivial case. If sum is even, not possible to divide, to make split. Let's call, so if sum, or actually, if sum of the nums is mod 2 has a remainder 0, which means it's even, turn 0. Sorry, just count down. If the sum is an odd number, which means the sum has a remainder of 1 when you divide by 2, then there's 0 splits. So then it becomes, a count. Yeah, so here I think if the latest value creates a sum, so I'm thinking about the sum of the values on the left. If the sum of the values on the left is an even number, then the remaining values will be an even number, so that's going to add 1 to it. If the sum of the values on the left is an odd number, the values on the left is an odd number, and the sum of the values on the right should also be an odd number. Right? Is there any way that that doesn't work? Some values on the left, some values. Actually, yeah. I get this feeling it's just return the length of the nums. Or actually, it's going to return length minus 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's length minus 1 since you can't actually include everything, right? You can't include all the values of the array into it. Yeah. Let's see if that plays out as I am theorizing. Okay. Well, it was a little longer than I expected, but I think we got there. I guess it's not really trivial case, it's the whole case. Alright, summary. This is going to be more of a math logic problem. So two primary understandings, 2 primary keys. A, not possible to do any split whose difference is even if the overall sum is odd. So what's an easy way of reasoning that? What is the easy way of reasoning that? So yeah, so like if a minus b is equal to 2k, then a is equal to 2k plus b, which, well, then, so a and b must, which therefore means that a and b must have the same parity, both odd or both even. If you add 2 times a number, which is basically if you kind of, yeah, if you do a skipping a certain amount of numbers between a and b, or that number is an even number, then if this is odd, then this is going to be odd. And then the second note would be I'll say this is 1 and 2. Second note is any split, any valid split, or any kind of non-zero, non-empty split of an array whose sum is even should work. Because if left is odd in terms of its sum, then right is odd sum. And similarly for even. Like if the total sum is like an even number, 100, if one side is odd, it's like 1, the other side has to be odd, 99, and the difference there is going to be even. And then similarly, if one side's even, like 50, the other side's 50, difference is even. Time complexity is going to be O of n to iterate, to calculate the sum of the array to determine the logic of casing. And then space complexity is O1 since no data structures are needed.